My girlfriend is expecting my child, my best friend told me. The words hit me like a knife to the chest. But I didn't flinch. I didn't shout. I just looked at him, then at her, and I said quietly, "You'll be an excellent father." She smirked at me, like she had won some cruel game. I could see the pride in her eyes. She thought she had broken me beyond repair. He shifted, trying to stand taller, like this was his victory. But then I smiled. Slowly. Calmly. And I pulled out the medical report I had been hiding for weeks. Their smug faces drained of color in an instant. The silence was louder than any scream. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment they realized they weren't the ones holding the cards. I was. But before I tell you how we got to that moment, I need to take you back. Back to the beginning. Because betrayal doesn't just fall from the sky. It grows like a crack in the wall, silent, slow, almost invisible, until one day the whole thing collapses. I remember the first time I noticed something was off. My girlfriend, let's call her Anna, wasn't laughing at my jokes anymore. She used to light up, her whole face softening when I said something silly. But lately, her eyes felt distant, her laugh hollow, like she was pretending to care. At first, I told myself it was stress, work, life. People change, right? But the pit in my stomach wouldn't leave. Then there was Mark. My best friend since childhood. The guy who had stood beside me through every storm, who had sworn we'd always have each other's back. He started spending more time with her than I did. At first, it seemed innocent. He was always around, always helpful, always kind. Too kind. Bringing her coffee when she didn't ask. Checking in on her when I was away. I thought maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was paranoid. But the way they shared looks when they thought I wasn't watching, it gnawed at me. It started with whispers. Late-night texts she'd hide, claiming it was work. Calls he'd cut short when I walked into the room. I'd ask what was going on, and she'd laugh it off, calling me jealous. He'd pat my shoulder and tell me I was overthinking. And I believed them. Because I wanted to. Because who wants to think the two people you trust most are the ones stabbing you in the back? But my gut refused to stay silent. It screamed at me in the quiet moments. In the nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying their smiles, their half-finished sentences, their excuses. That's when the anger began to boil, not loud but quiet and sharp. A kind of anger that doesn't erupt right away but waits, bides its time, searching for proof. The night that changed everything started out normal. I had a late meeting, and I came home earlier than expected. I thought I'd surprise her. But when I stepped into the driveway, her car was gone. I called. No answer. I texted. Nothing. Something inside me told me to wait. To drive. And so I did. I don't know what I expected to find, but I know what I saw. Them. Together. Not just standing too close. Not just talking. But intimate. Familiar. Like two people who had crossed a line a long time ago. My hands shook on the steering wheel. My vision blurred. I wanted to get out, to confront them, to scream until my lungs gave out. But I didn't. I just drove away. My silence that night became the sharpest weapon I would ever use. Because silence is powerful. Silence collects evidence. Silence waits for the right moment. And in that silence, I found something they never expected. The medical report. Proof that would not only tear their lives apart but strip them of the power they thought they had over me. So when Mark looked me in the eye and said those words, when Anna smirked like she had finally broken me, they didn't know I had been waiting for this. They didn't know the silence had been my greatest shield. They didn't know their world was about to collapse in the most brutal way possible. And as I held that report in my hand, watching the color drain from their faces, I realized something. Betrayal doesn't just hurt. It transforms you. It teaches you that sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet, cold, precise. This was just the beginning. I remember when the first cracks began to show. They weren't loud, they weren't obvious, but they were there, like hairline fractures in glass. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Relationships go through rough patches, right? People get tired, distracted, caught up in life. But the more I tried to ignore it, the louder it became. Anna wasn't the same anymore. She used to look at me like I was the only person in the room. When I walked through the door, her smile used to light up the whole place. Now her eyes barely lifted from her phone. I'd talk to her, and she'd nod absently, mumbling half-hearted replies. I convinced myself she was just stressed. Work was draining her. Maybe she needed space. But in my heart, I knew it was something else. Something darker. And then there was Mark. My best friend. The guy who had been with me through everything. School fights, college exams, family chaos. He wasn't just a friend, he was a brother. Or at least, I thought he was. But around that same time, he started to change too. He was suddenly too present in my relationship. Too attentive to Anna. If I forgot to bring her coffee, somehow he showed up with one. If I was late coming home, he was there, checking in on her like it was his job. At first, I thought it was kindness. That's who Mark was, right? Loyal. Caring. But as the days passed, I realized he wasn't just being supportive. He was filling a role that wasn't his to fill. I began to notice the details. The small, quiet details that cut deeper than any obvious betrayal. The way their conversations would pause when I walked into the room. The way they avoided each other's eyes, as if pretending nothing was happening. The way Anna laughed harder at his jokes than mine. The way he'd linger too long when handing her something. These weren't accidents. They were signs. And I saw every one of them. But seeing and believing are two very different things. My head screamed at me that something was wrong, but my heart begged me to stay blind. Because the truth was unbearable. The truth meant the two people I loved and trusted most were betraying me. And I wasn't ready to face that. So, I swallowed it. I buried my anger deep, telling myself I was overreacting. That I was being paranoid. But paranoia has a way of eating you alive. Nights became harder. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling while Anna scrolled on her phone beside me, her screen tilted away from my eyes. I'd close mine, pretending to sleep, but every buzz of a notification made my chest tighten. Was it him? Was he texting her right there, while I was inches away? My mind played endless loops of scenarios I couldn't prove but couldn't ignore. I started sleeping less, smiling less. The weight of suspicion pressed on me every hour of the day. Sometimes I'd try to catch them. I'd walk into the room unexpectedly, hoping to see something, anything, that would confirm my fears. But they were careful. Too careful. Their guilt didn't show in big gestures. It showed in the silence. In the way they never met my eyes at the same time. In the awkward gaps between their words. In the sudden change of subject when I entered. And every time I thought about confronting them, I stopped myself. Because what if I was wrong? What if I destroyed everything over nothing? That's how betrayal works. It makes you question your own sanity. It makes you doubt what you see with your own eyes. It makes you carry anger like a hidden fire inside, burning you slowly, silently. I started to withdraw. I didn't laugh the way I used to. I didn't tell stories. I kept my mouth shut, holding back the storm building inside me. Anna noticed, but she didn't ask why. Mark noticed, but he just told me to cheer up, as if his words could erase the suspicion lodged in my chest. I began to feel like a stranger in my own life, like the outsider in a story I should have been the center of. The worst part wasn't what I suspected. It was how alone I felt in it. I couldn't tell anyone. How do you explain that the two people you trust most might be betraying you? Who would believe me without proof? So, I carried it alone. Night after night, smile after fake smile, until the silence inside me became unbearable. That was when my gut finally screamed loud enough to drown everything else out. Something was wrong. I didn't have the proof yet, but I knew. Deep in my bones, I knew. And I also knew that if I kept ignoring it, it would destroy me completely. I just didn't realize yet that the destruction had already begun. The breaking point came on a night I will never forget. It started like any other, but something about it felt off from the beginning. Anna told me she had a late work meeting. She said it quickly, almost too quickly, with that flat tone she used whenever she didn't want me to ask questions. I nodded, pretending to believe her, but my gut clenched. By then, my instincts had screamed at me so many times that I couldn't ignore them anymore. So, I made a choice. That night, instead of sitting at home trying to convince myself I was imagining things, I got in my car and followed her. My hands shook on the wheel as I trailed her from a distance, headlights dimmed, my heart pounding in my throat. I told myself I was crazy, that I'd follow her to her office and laugh at myself later. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't be laughing. She didn't drive to the office. She didn't even drive in that direction. Instead, she turned down a quieter part of town, a place where no one would think to look. And when she finally stopped the car, I saw his. Mark's. My best friend's car parked right there, waiting. My chest tightened, my breathing sharp and shallow. I felt like my whole body was on fire. I parked far enough to stay hidden, but close enough to see everything. Anna got out, her face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. Not for me. Not for us. But for him. Mark stepped out, and they didn't just hug. They held each other like lovers. Like they had been doing it for a long time. His hand lingered on her back, her head pressed into his chest. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a friendly gesture. It was intimacy. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly I thought it might snap in half. My stomach churned, and I thought I was going to throw up right there. My worst nightmare wasn't just in my head anymore. It was real, unfolding in front of me. The two people I loved most, wrapped up in each other like I never existed. I could have stormed out of the car. I could have screamed, yelled, made a scene. Part of me wanted to. Every muscle in my body screamed to confront them. But another part of me, colder, sharper, told me not to. It told me to wait, to watch, to let them believe I was still blind. Because if I confronted them now, they'd deny it. They'd twist it. They'd make me feel crazy all over again. So I stayed silent. I drove away that night, my heart shattered into pieces, my mind buzzing with rage and grief. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I sat in the dark, replaying every memory, every laugh, every touch between them that I had ignored. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't new. This had been happening for months, maybe longer. The silence was unbearable, but it also gave me clarity. I knew I couldn't let my emotions explode yet. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. And as if fate was on my side, that proof came sooner than I ever expected. One evening, Anna slipped. She left her phone on the counter while showering, and a message popped up. It wasn't just Mark's name. It was the words in the message that froze my blood. "Don't worry, we'll figure it out. The baby will be ours." I felt like the floor collapsed under me. A baby. My girlfriend, was pregnant, and she was talking to my best friend about it like it was theirs. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. My heart raced so fast I thought I'd pass out. I wanted to scream at her right then. But again, something stopped me. That cold, sharp voice told me to wait. To get proof. And proof came. Because here's the thing, Anna didn't know something I did. I had a medical history that made it impossible for me to father a child. I had known for years, and it was something only a few people were aware of. So when she started dropping hints about being pregnant, when I saw that message, I knew the truth. I wasn't the father. I couldn't be. I made an appointment. Quietly. Carefully. I took every step needed to get the medical confirmation. When the report came back, it was like holding a loaded weapon in my hand. Cold. Heavy. Final. It said in black and white what I already knew, that the child couldn't possibly be mine. That night, I stared at the paper for hours, my hands trembling. Anger, grief, betrayal, they all crashed over me in waves. But beneath it all, there was something else. Calm. A strange, terrifying calm. Because I realized that I didn't just have suspicion anymore. I had proof. Undeniable, shattering proof. and I knew exactly how I was going to use it. I still remember the way my hands shook when I held that envelope from the hospital. It looked so ordinary, so fragile, just paper sealed inside a thin layer. But I knew what it carried. It wasn't just words. It was truth. It was betrayal captured in ink. It was the end of everything I thought I knew. Opening it wasn't easy. My chest was tight, my throat dry, and for a moment I almost didn't want to know. As if leaving it sealed could somehow delay the collapse of my world. But I forced myself to tear it open, and there it was in plain, cold language. I was infertile. I couldn't father a child. I had always known it was likely, but seeing it spelled out in official terms felt like a punch to the gut and a strange kind of relief at the same time. Because now, everything Anna had been saying about our future and the baby on the way made sense. She wasn't carrying my child. She couldn't be. Which meant all her little smiles, all her excuses, all her whispered lies to Mark. They were exactly what I feared. Real. I sat in silence for hours after reading that report. The rage came first, hot and violent, burning through my veins like fire. I wanted to destroy everything around me, to scream until my voice broke. But then something else settled in, a calm so heavy it felt unnatural. It wasn't peace. It was the calm before a storm. The kind that makes the air heavy and still, moments before lightning splits the sky. That was when I realized something important. This paper wasn't just proof. It was a weapon. They thought they had the upper hand. They thought their little secret affair was invisible, that their lies were airtight, that I was blind and naive. But what they didn't know was that I held the one piece of truth that could unravel them completely. Anna believed she had me trapped. She thought she could spin this pregnancy into a story where I either accepted the lie or walked away quietly, carrying the shame of being replaced by my own best friend. Mark probably believed the same, that I'd stay silent, broken, maybe even grateful enough to bow out of their lives. But they didn't know the truth I held in my hands. They didn't know I had been watching, listening, waiting. I began to plan. Not recklessly, not emotionally, but carefully. Every move had to be precise. I wanted the confrontation to be undeniable, unforgettable. I wanted to see the exact moment their smug confidence shattered. At night, while Anna slept, I'd sit at the kitchen table staring at the report. I'd imagine the look on her face when I slid it across the table. I'd imagine Mark's jaw tightening, his smirk disappearing. I replayed it over and over in my mind until it became almost comforting. I didn't feel powerless anymore. I felt in control. The rage inside me hadn't vanished, it had just sharpened into something colder. Something dangerous. I wasn't going to scream or beg or cry in front of them. I was going to break them the way they tried to break me. By staying calm, by holding the truth steady in my hands and letting it cut them open. Every time Anna mentioned the baby, my stomach twisted, but I stayed quiet. I smiled. I nodded. I played along, feeding her illusion. She thought I was still blind, still unaware, still holding on to her. Mark thought the same. They mistook my silence for weakness, but it was patience. They were digging their own graves, and I was giving them the rope. The day I finally decided on the confrontation, I remember standing in front of the mirror, looking at my own reflection. I didn't see the broken man I was weeks before. I didn't see the paranoid, sleepless wreck they had made me. I saw someone different, someone harder, someone ready. I folded the report carefully, slid it into my jacket pocket, and took a long breath. For the first time in months, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't afraid. I was steady, cold, and clear. Because I knew what was coming. I knew the storm I was about to bring down on them. And the best part? They had no idea what was waiting for them. It all came down to one night. The night I had been waiting for. The night I would finally face them both, not with rage, not with tears, but with the truth they never saw coming. We were sitting in Mark's living room. Anna was there too, sitting close enough to him that the message was clear even if she didn't say a word. I had let them arrange this meeting, thinking they were about to break me with whatever story they had rehearsed together. Mark leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, looking smug. His voice was steady, like he had been waiting for this moment. "I need to tell you something," he said, glancing at Anna before locking eyes with me. "Your girlfriend is expecting my child." Anna didn't flinch. In fact, she smirked. That little half-smile of hers, the one she used whenever she thought she'd won. The one I used to mistake for confidence but now saw for what it really was: arrogance, selfishness, cruelty. I sat back, let the silence stretch. My heart should have been racing, but it wasn't. For the first time in months, I felt calm. I looked at Mark, then at Anna, and then I smiled. "You'll be an excellent father," I said, my voice even, almost casual. That wiped the grin right off her face. Mark shifted uncomfortably, his eyebrows narrowing as if he wasn't sure he heard me right. Anna tilted her head, her smirk flickering into something unsure. I leaned forward slowly, pulling the folded paper from my jacket pocket. I set it down on the table between us, deliberately, like laying a card in a high-stakes game. "But before you celebrate," I said, "you should probably read this." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut skin. Mark reached for the paper first, unfolding it with a frown. His eyes scanned the words, and I saw it, the exact second his confidence cracked. His jaw clenched, his face drained of color. He passed the paper to Anna without a word. Anna's hands shook as she read. The smirk was gone. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked at me like I had just pulled the ground out from under her feet. I didn't have to explain a single thing. The report did all the talking. The silence in that room was louder than any scream. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to demand answers. Watching their faces crumble was enough. Every ounce of betrayal, every sleepless night, every suspicion that had torn me apart, it all came back to this moment. And for once, I wasn't the broken one. They were. I stood up slowly, pushing the chair back with a scrape that echoed in the heavy air. Neither of them said a word. Mark's eyes were wide, his breathing shallow. Anna tried to speak, but all she managed was a stutter of broken syllables. I looked at them one last time. "The thing about lies," I said quietly, "is they always fall apart when the truth shows up." Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I left them there, drowning in the silence, choking on the truth they had tried so hard to hide. The night air outside felt different, lighter. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe. My chest wasn't heavy anymore. I wasn't carrying their betrayal like a weight strapped to my back. I had given it back to them, and now it was theirs to live with. As I drove away, I realized something important. Revenge doesn't always come with fire and fury. Sometimes the greatest revenge is silence. It's walking away with dignity while they sit in the wreckage of their own choices. It's knowing they'll never forget the moment their lies collapsed under the weight of truth. They thought they had broken me. But in the end, it was their own game that destroyed them. And me? I was free.